I love PSAs in comic books because they can be completely bonkers. Captain America meets the asthma monster. Supergirl saves Humpty Dumpty from a car crash. Superman and Wonder Woman teach kids about the dangers of landmines. But since I recently hit 420,000 subscribers, I figured that there was one subject that I absolutely had to tackle. Spider-Man and Mary Jane.
You're too late, Spider-Man! Weed has been legalized!
Yes, good old Green Goblin, Venom, and Spider-Man Kush. Although the wall crawler has been drafted into all sorts of PSAs over the years, none are more infamous than 1999's Fastlane, which is widely considered to be one of the most hated comic books of all time. But was it really that bad? Hello and welcome to Comic Drake, where I talk about comic books and my name is Drake. Let's talk about it. I should have said comic dank. Now, even though this video is specifically about anti-drug use, there is a solid chance that it might get demonetized. And hell, even when I was talking to other sponsors, a lot of them did not want to be associated for that very reason. But luckily, there is one company that was down. I'm talking about Raid Shadow Legends. Raid Shadow Legends is the free-to-play hero collection RPG that has taken the world by storm, with over 80 million downloads. This game has easily some of the best graphics that I've ever seen on a mobile game. Right now, Raid is running an amazing special promotion for new players in the US, where you can vote on your favorite starter champion for the opportunity to win both in-game and real-world prizes, including in-game items, rare champions, and even Amazon gift cards of up to $1,000. Even existing players can still get in on the action because you can also get a small in-game gift. And just to make things even more crazy, Ronda Rousey has also jumped into the world of Raid Shadow Legends by getting her very own champion. A champion that you can get by simply logging into Raid for 7 days before February 20th. To celebrate her arrival, you can use the promo code RAIDRONDA to get a bunch of useful in-game items to help level her up. And on top of that, players can get the champion Yotan 100,000 silver, 50 gems, and 2 epic skill tomes. Get started today by clicking the link in the description or by scanning the QR code on screen and start hacking, slashing, and collecting today. Anyway, thank you so much Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring today's video, but now, let's get back into it. Back in 1999, Marvel Comics was contacted by the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy to commission a comic that would focus on how the media we consume can influence the decisions that we make, with a special emphasis on the glamorization of marijuana in the entertainment industry. You have to remember that this was around the time that the most iconic stoner movies of all time were being released, like Dazed and Confused, Friday, and The Big Lebowski. Though I think the irony might have been a little bit lost on them, considering that they were trying to release a piece of media that would influence the decisions that the readers had made, albeit in a more positive way. Now, of course, Spider-Man is Marvel's most popular hero, so he was a no-brainer for being the comic's headliner. Plus, Spidey was no stranger to anti-drug messaging. After all, when Stan Lee wanted to write an anti-drug storyline in 1971, the comic industry's regulation board, the Comics Code Authority, rejected it because they didn't want drugs presented or mentioned, period, even in a negative light, prompting Marvel to publish the issues anyway, thus becoming the first mainstream comics to be released without the Authority's seal of approval since the Authority came into formation. The 1999 story was called Fastlane, and it is one hell of a wild ride. So there's this movie star named Zane Wellen, and a huge part of his branding is being a massive stoner. But instead of being chill and laid back like Snoop Dogg or a lovable goofball like Seth Rogen, he is instead a cool action star and is about to take the world by storm with his upcoming film, Fastlane. J. Jonah Jameson despises Wellen because he's one of those reefer heads, and he refuses to run the movie's ads in his paper. But an intern named Sam completely idolizes Zane and set up an interview with him behind Jonah's back for his column in the Bugle, and Peter Parker is along for the ride to take photos of said interview. Also, you might notice that J. Jonah Jameson's facial expressions are noticeably off in this comic, and that's because the White House asked for his iconic cigar to be removed. So instead of just pulling a 4Kids and turning Jonah's stogie into a lollipop, the cigar was instead turned into spit. Yeah, the White House requirements were a little bit all over the place. Like, smoke, pot leaves, and paraphernalia were all fine, but nobody was allowed to actually be shown smoking. Also, nobody was allowed to throw a punch, and even J. Jonah Jameson raising a fist was considered to be too threatening, so the word balloon was moved to cover it up, leaving this really awkward visual space where the balloon clearly went originally. But the weirdest thing out of everything is that a truck driver's dialogue had to get changed because the White House said the writers were stereotyping truck drivers, and that was a no-no. But back to the plot. Critics have been saying that Fastlane was going to feature the best special effects of all time, and that really got under the skin of Mysterio, because no, he makes the best special effects of all time. I love that out of all of the Spider-Man villains at their disposal, the writers specifically chose to go with the smoke guy. 10 out of 10 choice, no notes. But you see, Mysterio isn't just content to go after Zane Wellen. No. He wants to destroy all of the images of him and those who flaunt it. And this of course includes the Daily Bugle van, which Sam had custom decaled with a Fastlane poster. This explicitly was confirmed to be a Daily Bugle van, which means that this intern spent his own money to deface his company's property with imagery that the owner explicitly hates. Bro, you were getting so fired when Jameson finds out, and we also know that this is an unpaid position because there is no way in hell that Jonah would pass up the opportunity for free labor. This is clearly an unpaid intern. He used his own money for this. I know this is a minor detail, but I'm just obsessed with that. I don't think the artist thought about it that much. So yeah, Mysterio grabs the van with a big magnet, which causes the bowl that Sam keeps on hand so he can be cool like Zane to fall out of his pocket. However, when Sam reaches for it, he accidentally opens the door to the van and now he's falling for his life. However, Sam is not worried about dying. He's worried about losing his bowl. Now, let's stop here for a second, because in many parts of the United States in the 90s, including New York where this comic takes place, head shops existed and you are legally allowed to buy hand pipes because they can be sold with the intent of them being used for tobacco. Hell, you can even make a bowl out of an apple or a water bottle if you're desperate. So for Sam to freak out this much over an easily replaceable object is beyond ridiculous. But maybe he's worried because this is incredibly unique, because look at this bowl that is super out of the ordinary. See, in an interview with Comics Alliance, which by the way is where I got a lot of the research for this video, so huge shout out to them, Fastlane's artist Greg Schiegel admitted that he took some creative liberties with Sam's bowl, saying, quote,
"I'd never done any drugs. Still haven't, so really the drug stuff was quite foreign to me. I wasn't so sheltered to not be aware of it. I grew up seeing Cheech and Chong movies, knew stoners certainly, I went to college, but my direct personal experience wasn't much more than, what's that smell? My ignorance was such that I consulted with others for reference. This was in the days before simple internet image searches. I distinctly remember asking one of the guys in the Marvel bullpen to describe what a bowl might look like, and worked up some sketches as he pointed out what looked right or wrong. And almost like a police sketch artist, I worked up the bowl that Sam Exmoor is so very attached to in that story."
The end result was that Sam's bowl looks more like an opium pipe than anything else, and the kid treats it like it's a holy relic. But with some quick webbing, Peter saves the day, and instead of taking a second to process this near-death experience or to check on the van, which was strongly slammed to the ground, everyone instead hurries on over to the set of Fastlane as if everything was completely normal. On set, it's revealed that Zane Wellen is a complete asshole to the cast and crew. But worst of all, he is a big phony.
"You're a phony! Hey, this guy's a great big phony!"
This guy doesn't smoke. He only wears contact lenses to pretend like he's high. Sam is outraged by this, and after telling Zane off, he loads up a bowl and drives off. But at just that moment, Mysterio crashes the set to take out
Zane Wellen
once and for all. While Spidey and Mysterio fight, Sam is bobbing and weaving through traffic, where he's shown that he is suffering from hallucinations, which is not how marijuana works. In case it hasn't been obvious in this video, I do occasionally smoke the devil's lettuce from time to time, but only in states where it's legal, and definitely not here in Texas because that's illegal. But let me tell you, from firsthand experience, all that really happens to me when I'm high on marijuana is that I think Deadpool is funny and I really, really want a pizza. But anyway, cut back to Spider-Man and he defeats Mysterio without throwing a single punch because, you know, White House, and it's told that Sam drove off in a cloud of smoke. So Spidey needs to go make sure he's safe. Cut back to Sam and we find that he is walking on the edge of the Brooklyn Bridge in a weed-induced stupor. But he's like, this is lame. So he gets back in the van and then he's hit by a truck and causes a fiery explosion. Peter arrives just in time to grab the van, but the webs break. However, it seems like every other superhero in New York saw the commotion and came out to help, just in the nick of time, including this weird prototype version of Spider-Girl. So quick nerdy aside, there have been plenty of Spider-Girls over the years, but this is not one of them. She's actually a random design that Greg Schiegel had drawn up as a Halloween costume that Marvel was thinking about putting in production, but that never actually came into fruition. Anyway, with the help of all the superheroes and that Spider-Girl, the day is saved. And then we cut to Sam in the hospital, where Zane and his agent drop by to be like, man, I had no idea that my bad boy persona would be a bad influence, I'll try to change it. And then Sam learns a valuable lesson about the power and influence that he has as a writer for the Daily Bugle. And because of that great power, there is also great responsibility to use it for good. The end. Now, I'm sure plenty of you guys are thinking,
wait, that's it? That is one of the most hated comic books of all time?
and yeah, the plot of the comic itself is dumb and cheesy, but it is by no means the worst comic ever written. The reason why people hated this was because the book became an all-out plague. The problem is that Fastlane wasn't a self-contained issue. It was broken up into 4 8-page parts, and they were inserted into every single comic that Marvel was putting out, including Daredevil, which at the time was being written by the legendarily famous stoner Kevin Smith. This went on every other month for 8 months, and this pissed readers off. It's like getting the same YouTube ad over and over and over again, or the same company that sponsors every single creator to the point where their product becomes a meme. Hey, you guys ever heard of Raid Shadow Legends? But to go one step further, okay, I probably shouldn't throw the phone. But to go one step further, Fastlane was published in a lot of non-comic magazines like National Geographic World, Boys Life, Girls Life, Muse, Scholastic, Sports Illustrated for Kids, and plenty more, which brought the estimated distribution of Fastlane to about 11 million. For context, the best-selling American comic book of all time is X-Men #1 from the 90s at just over 8 million issues. But even that is not the worst part. You see, Fastlane was actually a pretty well-drawn comic for the time, and it looked like pretty much every other book that Marvel was putting out in the 90s. So when you turn the page and saw the Fastlane segment, it's not immediately obvious that's a random PSA. So a lot of readers thought that it was just an abrupt scene change, and it was an even more jarring experience when these books were Spider-Man comics. Hell, even Schiegel was mad at the book, saying, quote,
Tom Brevoort and I were putting together the Avengers 1.5 issue at the time, and we realized it was coming out during a Fast Lane month. Now, this was a comic that was supposed to look like it came out between Avengers #1 and #2 in the 60s. A modern anti-drug comic would not fit that aesthetic. I went down to our manufacturing department and spoke to the people who dealt with such things, and asked specifically that it not appear in that comic. I made it clear that I was the guy who drew it, and even I didn't want it in there. I got the verbal, okay, taken care of, and then boom, there it was in the middle of that book. It was the only time seeing it in a comic upset me. I tore it out of my copy for what that's worth.
And yeah, Schiegel wasn't alone. Many comic fans were known to rip the pages of Fastlane out of their books, and that is really saying something, because trying to keep your issues in as pristine of a condition as possible is a huge deal in the comic fandom. I'm sure that there are some kids that read this comic and swore that they would never smoke marijuana as long as they lived. But as a lot of studies have shown, a lot of these campaigns and programs simply didn't work. At the end of the day though, this was just an interesting little moment in comic history, even if the efforts of the comic went up in smoke. Again, I want to give a big thank you to Chris Sims of Comics Alliance for this amazing set of interviews that capture all the behind the scenes nonsense of the creation of this incredibly infamous comic. I'll have a link to his full article in the description down below. But anyway, I hope you learned at least a little something new, and hopefully, I'll see you next time.